The sun is shining. It is a chilly day here at Imola, and we are set for the second race of the weekend in the Fanatec GT2 European Series. It was a really lively race yesterday. GT2 is a category only in its second season, so grids are still growing. Good mix of cars, interesting mix of drivers. And yesterday, a sprinkling of rain just before the start, a few nervous drivers, plus cold tyres, plus new cars for some and a new venue for others, all added together to give us a really interesting 50-minute race. The grid is formed based not on the results of yesterday, but times set in the second qualifying session. It is a 50-minute race. There's a mandatory pit stop with the pit window in the middle part of the race, and the grid is set to be led away by Stinus Langin in Audi number 11, and the cars are going to be off the grid very shortly for potentially 2 formation laps in order to get a little bit of warmth into the tyres. Ben Constanduros and David Addison trackside. Gemma Scott is down on the grid, and she's busy rounding up drivers before we go racing. Gemma.
Nicola, starting on pole position, of course, with your teammate. This is the prime position for the weekend. A great championship that's grown already in its second season.
Yes. For us, it's our first championship this year, so we're very excited. The car is great. Yesterday we had some issues with vibrations in the car, so because it was a little bit wet and then it was drying up. But we are very excited too, and the pole position is, of course, a great achievement for the team and for my teammate and myself, so we're very happy.
What's your expectation now for the race?
We're going to see. We have seen yesterday that the competition is strong, so and also our other fellow teammate, which is just behind us, is also very strong, so we have to see. Made the fastest win today.
Absolutely. Well, it's an Audi front row, and they've been very strong already this morning at GT3.
Yes. Audi is doing very well here in Imola. It's a lot of performance, very high speed track, so I'm confident.
Just as we're talking there, I felt a couple of spots of rain falling.
We're gonna see. Following our schedule, we think it will dry up and keep dry. So we're gonna see. If it rains, we will have to adapt. So
we'll go and do a sun dance. Thank you very much, Nicola.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So Nicolas Salins will go second in the car to be started by Stinus Langin. There is one of the KTMs with the oh-so distinctive bodywork. It's the car of Laura Kreimer. You open and push forward, and the KTMs, as I say, quirky little cars, very, very quick performance per pound. They're a very, very good route into GT2 racing. We had them winning outright, indeed, on occasion last year. Christoph Ulrich being one of the real stars. Number 15 is going to line up on the rear of the grid, or near the rear of the grid, but will be a car to watch, I think, trying to carve a way through. So the field starting to form. There is number 7, which is the Gianluca Giorgi Porsche that led yesterday but lost out on a race win near the end. Now, yesterday's winner, Henri Hassid, will start last because he had fuel pump dramas in Q2, didn't get a time in. So it's going to be interesting to watch him coming up from the back of the grid. But Ben, yesterday the race delivered far more perhaps than was anticipated.
Well, we've got the winner from yesterday at the back of the grid. He shares that final row with the car that was so very fast at the start of the race, in the hands of Ella Earhart, in the hands of Doppelmayr, who will start today, less so. But the Brabham was one of the other cars that really starred in the second half of the race with the second driver, but was less strong with the first driver, Kevin Vida, who started the car. It's going to be a real challenge. It is cold. We said the sun was out, kind of is. It's not wet like it was at the start of yesterday's race, but getting temperature into the car and the tyres with these powerful machines is going to be a real challenge in these first couple of races, laps. And it's great to see that we've got the more experienced drivers in the car to make that happen. In general, not across the board.
No, I take your point. And again, the fact that today's grid is very different from yesterday's adds to the drama. So the 15-second board shown, the race director, Peter Daly, talked to a number of the teams yesterday and to Pirelli about tyre temperature, because it is surprisingly chilly. We're not just whinging about this, it is an effect for everybody. And of course, in a category like this, where predominantly you're dealing with amateur drivers, gentlemen racers. These aren't pros, these aren't people that spend every race day, race weekend in a car somewhere. These are occasional racers, relatively speaking. You don't want to send them off with a risk. And if it's very chilly and the tyres aren't up to temperature, a risk there could be. So that's why they're the 2 formation laps, just to basically give the drivers that extra bit of safety cushion with the tyre temperature before we go racing. At the back of the grid, Henri Hassid, who was the winner yesterday in the end by 5 seconds. And this is how they line up. Stinus Longchamp will start from pole position with Michael Vergers, the Dutch driver, lining up on the outside of the front row of the grid. On the second row, Bert Longchamp, Stina's father, and he has former Porsche Super Cup racer Stefan Rossina alongside him. Starting 5th is going to be Anders Fjordbach, the reigning Pro-Am champion. Different car this year, the Brabham, and he has the Martini pseudo-liveried Porsche of Gianluca Giorgi alongside. There it is, the very smart silver car ahead of Laura Kreimer's True Racing KTM and Leonardo Gorini's Porsche, which, as you'll see when we get to that car, is another one in a sort of nod to the works colour schemes of years past. Lining up 9th is Hubert Trunkenpolz, sharing with Klaus Angerhofer, and the Sri Lanka driver Dilanfa Malagamua makes another welcome return to European racing. This time he's in the Target Racing Ram Lamborghini of Pierluigi Alessandri. He was spectacular yesterday, had a couple of dramas, but was very quick in between them. Luca Piri will start next with Michael Doppelmayr alongside him. They're both out of the LP Racing stable, as is the man at the back of the grid, yesterday's winner, Henri Hassid, in his Audi. Very experienced driver, so perhaps no surprise that he went well yesterday. So the drivers that did the second stint yesterday start today, and it's going to be really fascinating to see, if you like, how those AMs have improved in confidence after a race yesterday, whether a drier road makes much difference. I mean, yesterday, genuinely, we didn't see a spot of rain. Drivers were saying it was very wet out at the back part of the circuit, and Ben was likening it in a sense to a miniature Spa, because, you know, patchy weather in different parts. You don't expect that at Imola, but we got it.
Yeah, and as we found out last night, the wettest area is about 300 metres from where we stand right now.
Yes.
Where we had our pizza last night.
Jolly good it was.
Very well. But the runoff area of the chicane seemed to be the greasiest area, and it really wasn't very far away. We don't have so much of that kind of problem today. It does look like it is consistently dry, although leaving our hotel this morning, very wet
it was
down there. Yeah. Whether that's coming this way or not, we are expecting rain at some point today, but so far, car parks are wet, but circuit is dry.
Now, the clock has started. This, effectively, now the race is on. This is the second formation lap, but it is within the time. So the opening lap of the race, effectively, is this extra formation lap. So, as we've been saying, they can't overtake because this is a formation lap, but it counts within the time, just to get the tyres up to temperature.
Remember yesterday we had a really fascinating battle between Longines, father and son, and Vergers. The three of them were locked together for the second half of the race. Very, very entertaining. And we had Rossina and Fjordbach coming through the field from the back. We've got those 5 cars on the front 5 places of the grid here, and so it should be very, very interesting to see if we get that same kind of entertainment in this first part of the second race. The likes of both the Porsches, actually, the Ebi Porsches of Giorgi and Gorini, both will stay in the car throughout the full 50-minute race, as will Henri Hassid. The rest of them will hand over to another driver.
And of course, being in the car for the duration does give you an advantage, because you know what it feels like, you know what the circuit condition is like. So at the end of this lap, we will be ready to go racing. Peter Daly, who is the race director, a racer himself in the UK in Formula Ford, he's also the British GT race director, for which he has a driving standards advisor. It is Michael Vergers, the man on the outside of the front row. So Michael has got to be so well behaved in this category for fear of the abuse he gets when he next rocks up in British GT. But Michael, still very, very quick, still much underrated, but a very, very successful Formula Ford driver before racing pretty much everything over the years. Sports cars, AS cars at Rockingham, GT cars, you name it. There's Anders Fjordbach in the fantastic sounding Brabham.
Yeah, wonderful yesterday, and fast as well in the second half of the race in his hands. Equal to the best lap of the race, just a couple of hundredths of a second off the actual fastest lap of the race. So it is able to be pedalled fast when in the right hands.
Picking a winner out of all of this, I think, could be quite a task, because there are lots of potential winners, and we had lots of surprises yesterday. So let us get set to go racing. Number 11 then, from the PK Car Sport stable, is Stinus Longchamp to start, and it's Michael Vergers lining up alongside him. Fergus to lead the first stint, I would suggest, but you know, these are in the main the quicker drivers. It's the co-driver pace we then need to assess into the second part. So nearest to us, the black-nosed Audi is on pole position. That's Stina Slongean. The red-nosed car of Michael Vergas alongside the car of Aurelius Rustica, whereas Stina Slongean shares with Nicola Seidens, from her, whom we heard on the grid. Up they come then now towards the lights. We have had effectively therefore 3.5 minutes on that second formation lap, but the lights will change. The race gets underway now, then we go racing, and a good getaway by Vergas, and there's one on the grass already. I think it's the Brabham that just about survives the experience. Anders Fjordback then. That was an enormous laundry bill moment, but he has survived the experience, gets it back onto the tarmac, and also fends off Laura Kreimer's KTM as they wriggle up through Tamburello for the first time, but that was all a bit crowded. Fjordback there had the save of the day.
But it was very aggressive at the start, wasn't he? He had a good start. He instantly jinked out to the inside, and no doubt the guys ahead were not expecting him to do so. Racina looking very fast in the KTM, already attacking for second position around the outside. Has he got the grip? Has he got the temperature into the tyres? Not quite to be able to go around the outside of Tosa, but already up to third position.
Belting start, though, from Longchamp, because look at the gap. He's pulled over Michael Vergas already as they climb the hill up towards Piratella. Fjordback fourth then in the Brabham. They can market lawnmowers now as well as GT cars. And then in fifth place there behind him, you've got Bert Longchamp, number 81. This is Sam then leading the way as they plunge downhill. But Bert Longchamp has dropped back a little bit from his third place on the grid as they head to Acqua Minerale for the first time. And then the best of the Porsches, or the better of the Porsches, it is Gianluca Giorgi in the number 7 entry, next in the queue as they head up towards Variante Alta. But Longchamp Jr. absolutely storming away.
And the KTM now dropping behind the Brabham. So we did see Racina in third position, now down to fourth, and Fjordback with a very aggressive opening lap, not only going down towards the first turn, but now looking to go around the outside, which gives him the inside into Ravazza. Oh, far too late.
Through the gravel he goes. He's been off the road once. This is a second time. Has he got the momentum to come out the other side? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, he has. Out he comes. Lots of gravel going to be on the road there, and Anders Fjordback has got to do all the hard work all over again.
I fear his espresso this morning was a little too Italian.
It was a double, wasn't it? Absolutely.
Was double.
Right, this is what he did. I mean, the move was on, but he just could not slow down in time. And Michael Vergas laughing all the way to the bank, as it were, there, thinking, I could see that one coming. I was about to say how experienced a driver Anders Fjordback was, and he is, because he's done a huge amount of racing, both in Europe and in the States as well. He raced at Le Mans last year, for example, as well. But that was certainly a mistake on still cold tyres. The race start is under investigation. Right, that's one racing lap in the book, and it was a lively one.
Verge is almost looking like he's not quite happy with the car yet, taking a couple of stabs into Villeneuve as Fjordback fights back down the inside of Malagamua, the lone Lamborghini in the race, and now has a little bit of clear track ahead. Laura Kreihammer just ahead. Dominic, the brother, I believe, of Laura, who's done quite a lot of development work on that GT2 and GT, various other iterations of effectively the same car.
And as we were saying, the KTM, a very, very cost-effective way of going GT2 racing. Right, look at the start, and if you look towards the grass, you'll see a Brabham on it now, pretty much, because Fjordback darts out of the draft and just gets squeezed. I don't think it was a deliberate push, but as others tried to find track space, he was already committed, and the only place to go to keep out of contact was the grass. Then he had his gravelly moment at the end of the lap, and it meant that he came through in 8th position. So he's now 7th, I would suggest, at the expense of the traffic. But Anders' fight back, as he now has to be, is with a bit of a mission here, and therefore I would anticipate he will stay out for as much of that pit window as he can.
Henri Arcide, our winner from yesterday, down in 11th position. Not a huge amount of progress made by that Audi so far. It's, well, by the time we get across the line, it's going to be a good 15-20 seconds back from our leading car, such as the pace of Stina Slongean at the head of the field. Indeed, up to 10th position, 14 seconds back. But of course, the slower driver is going to have to get into the majority of our top 5 cars.
So there is Vergas out of the Villeneuve chicane. Interesting that he's lost 4 seconds already. I was suggesting he was going to lead the first stint. He's just done an absolute best in the first sector. Maybe Michael's car taking a little bit longer to come to him on this chilly morning. The car at the back is Mikael Doppelmayr, in the car that dominated the first stint yesterday. So if that car loses a lap, they're in real trouble. But Elliot Earhart's pace in stint 2 is going to be really intriguing, as there Stefan Rossina is third, the leading car out of the KTM fleet right now. Third overall, Bert Longchamp fourth behind him.
I've seen Doppelmayr do a couple of long-distance endurance races, and he does tend to be the one that does the least amount of driving. He was about 7 seconds off the pace in his second stint yesterday, but also will take longer to get comfortable in the car, will take longer to get up to speed to his maximum potential. So at the moment, it's something like 13 seconds off the fastest lap of the race. Good battle here.
And the Porsche is that of Leonardo Guarini in the mock cigarette livery, with tucked up behind the charging Henri Hassid, and then he's got Luca Piri, who is the LP of LP Racing. It's got, what, 4 cars on this grid. And of course, last year his co-driver was Stefan Rattel, but Stefan not racing this year, too busy with everything else that's going on. So down towards Rivazza comes Henri Hassid, chipping his way forward, not storming through the field though. Now, fastest lap of the race just done by Stinas Longchamp. Contact between Anders Fjordbach and Bert Longchamp at the start has been noted. So maybe there was a little bit of contact as Bert Longchamp darted out of the draft, and Anders Fjordbach in the Brabham was where he wanted to be. Hence, the grass was the only opportunity for Fjordbach to go. Either way, race control will have a quick look at that as Guarini goes out of the Tamburello. Lead gap then, 4.8 seconds, but more and more purples are coming from different cars, as well as now the drivers with tyres getting up to temperature feel more confident to push.
Yeah, because these cars are as quick as the GT3 specs. In theory, in the right hands, they should be quicker. They are beasts of cars to drive, and yet the experience of many of our drivers in this field is not as great as we will see in GT3 and even in GT4. So it does take time to, when you're handling a beast, to understand exactly what you need to do with it.
Yeah, these cars less aero-dependent. Yes, they have the aerodynamic appendages, but they aren't quite as important as for a GT3 car, for example. There's not quite as much of the aero either. You don't have quite the same amount of downforce. So they are designed for the amateur racer, but equally they are designed to be supercars that give them a thrill. And right now, Henri Hassid there is all over the back of Leonardo Guarini. This is for 9th place. Henri Hassid, yesterday's winner, still trying to work his way forward. He's getting the right way about it, but again, there's a balance of performance in GT2 like every other GT category, and it's worked out well, because although the Audi has caught the Porsche, it doesn't have the advantage anywhere really to go storming by.
Well, remember yesterday, the big benefit of those two Porsches was the high speed and effectively the long straights. They had 2 or 3 car lengths on all the other cars from exiting Rivazza here all the way down to Tamburello. So if you'd done the hard work, if you'd done well through Variante Alta, through Rivazza corners, and got right onto the tail of the Porsche, you had absolutely no chance to actually get them into Tamburello on the braking zone. So you had to be a bit more creative with trying to get past those Porsches, just because of the way the balance has matched up. And you can see Henri Hassid from yesterday, surely the faster of the drivers in that little battle, but can't find a way past for the moment.
Stinas Longchamp building up the gap. He's now 5 seconds over anybody else. The fastest lap of the race is Anders Fjordbach, and he has now got himself up into 6th. He's 11 seconds adrift. It's a bit of a snakes and ladders race, this, in a way, because not only has he been up and down the order already, it will happen again, because with the best will in the world, he is quicker than his co-driver. So wherever Anders Fjordbach hands the car over, there's no guarantee it's going to stay there. But now we've got Michael Vergers doing absolute bests in sectors. His last lap was a personal best, but not as quick as the race leader. So right now, Stinas Longchamp is still safe in the lead, still building the gap. His father is down in 4th place, but creeping into the mix there. Look in the background, hunting down this KTM of Stefan Rossina.
An unusual machine, but I do love it. I think it looks great and sounds great, and looks like the kind of thing you want to be driving.
The KTM.
Yeah. And Rosina has found pace in it that we didn't really see yesterday. Yes, in the second stint, he was able to wring the neck of it, but it looked very sketchy on the slippery conditions we had at the start of the race. It wasn't instilling confidence in the drivers that, in theory, should have been doing better in the car. But as the track dried out, it's the stiffness of that KTM comes into its own, and you can then start really leaning on the car and throwing it around.
Kind of forget how many KTMs there are racing, because it's not just a car represented in this. There is the KTM Crossbow Battle in Eastern Europe. Was off again, goes Anders Fjordbach. So there are lots and lots of different specs of KTM in that as well. Fjordbach hops back onto the circuit, so that's his third moment of the race. And the Brabham soldiers on. What did he do wrong here, Ben?
Missed his braking point again. Oh yes, turns in and just loses the rear end. I think he was a bit late on the brakes anyway, and certainly trying to really push the limits of this car. But when you're still on the brakes and turn and you're unweighted the rear of the car, that's when it starts to step out. He corrects it, but because once you've corrected it, you're facing the wrong direction for the trajectory of the corner.
Malagamua versus Hassid, which now means that Henry is ahead of Leonardo Gorini. So the Audi has moved up past the Porsche. Henri Hassid then gains a spot, and Anders Fjordbach had already got himself ahead of Gianluca Giorgi up into 5th. More selects and ladders, because we saw him go off the road again, but Henri Hassid now is making his move for 8th place against Dylan for Malagamua. We've seen him in recent seasons at SRO events in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, but traditionally he comes with a huge entourage of fans and family and friends. The Sri Lankan flags are always in attendance when his retinue is with him. But now that retinue following him is 3 cars strong, and Henri Hassid is determined to find a way past him, with at the back of the queue, Luca Piri yet to strike against Leonardo Gorini. Downhill they go. Leader has just gone through to complete lap 7, and we are only really about 6 minutes off the thought of the pit window opening, and therefore pit stops. But in the majority of cases, if you take the 2 driver entries, you've got your faster guy in at the moment, and therefore they'll stay out that bit longer. Except
for the 18 of Doppelmayr at the tail of the field, indeed. Over a minute back now from the leading car. What Ella Earhart will be wanting when he gets into the car is a safety car.
Absolutely.
And it's quite possible, you know, the way that Imola is, the way that the barriers are close to the circuit, lots of gravel, lots of grass. If you do spin, it's quite easy to find yourself stuck, and a safety car is the only way to recover that car cleanly and safely. And so that will play into the hands of Ella Earhart, because we saw he was the class of the field in that first stint of yesterday's race.
Now there, number 16, Stefan Rossina, still hanging on to 3rd. Bert Langevin behind him has done an absolute best first sector. Luca Piri lines up to have a go on Gorini in the Porsche and goes through. That was made to look relatively easy, wasn't it? Luca Piri had sat there for lap after lap, unable to make a move. Finally he commits, and Leonardo Gorini didn't exactly crowd him. In contrast, Dylan for Malagamua's Lamborghini has got jolly wide, because Henri Hassid is still stuck there and he can't find a way by.
Well, remember Hassid's pass yesterday on the Porsche for the lead of the race, going down into Ravazza. The door was wide open and he just wandered through. He didn't have to fight for it so hard yesterday. Here, certainly Malagamua is giving him something to think about and really giving him a fight on his hands. Even that the pass from Piri on Gorini there was relatively easy, because the door was half open, and as you say, this is a gentleman racing, and therefore you don't really want to be rubbing and battling and knocking panels off your supercars.
I'm racking my brains to remember whether Malagamua did the Lamborghini World Final event here a few years ago. I think he did, but I couldn't swear to that. My point being that for somebody with limited circuit knowledge, he's doing a very, very good job here, because he's under huge pressure from Henri Hassid. Another fastest lap of the race from Anders Fjordbach, now in the high 1 minute 42s. The fastest lap of yesterday's race was done by Stinas Langevin, of course, who is the man leading the race. He did a 43.4, so it's now a new lap record set effectively by Anders Fjordbach. There he is. If he stopped going off the road, that car would be making even better progress, but it's been very spectacular to watch.
Yeah, 3 offs so far, before turn 1, into turn 1, and then at the end of the lap at Ravazza. A few more corners to ruffle the gravel trap before the end of the race.
But the good news is the car's still going. Each of these incidents, he has come back fighting. So Anders Fjordbach, Anders fight back, carries on. And we've got him in 5th place now, as Malagamua and Hassid have been joined by Piri, and that's going to spur on Henri Hassid, I think, to get on with the programme if he can. He can't get past Malagamua, and now he has got Luca Piri crawling all over the back of his Audi. The patron, of course, the team boss of LP Racing, wants to get past his customer.
Race Control reporting that Michael Verges was off at turn 3. Whether that's true or not, looking at the timing screens, it doesn't suggest that he's had a particularly slow sector. But maybe a slight issue from Verges, who is 4.2 seconds back from Stinas Langevin. Not as close as we saw between those 4. I was expecting a tighter battle. Look at this kind of battle from those guys at the head of the field, but it's slightly spread out.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that Berg hasn't stayed with the leader. He's 3.9 seconds back, was quicker last time, was off the road there. Goes Laura Kreimer, trying to wrestle the place away from Gianluca Giorgi, but off the road and back on again. Right, we are just about a lap and a half or so away from the pit window opening. Those at the back will be able to take advantage of the opening sooner if they need to. I'm looking at Herr Doppelmayr in that respect, because as Ben rightly says, he can be expected to be in early out of number 18 Audi to give way to Eli Earhart. Laura Kreimer goes through. Another of the Pro-Am entries, 7th in class. Gianluca Giorgi is currently the leader in the AM category in the EB Motors Porsche there. It's a great paint scheme on that, isn't it? Great livery with the sort of martini hues. As there, Laura Kreimer goes to the inside line, and the little KTM sneaks through, takes the place, and that will put her now up into the top 6.
I mean, you say little. They were little when they were the original crossbow, but with all the extra bits and the suspension that's grown out and oh no!
Malagamua facing the wrong way. That's at Tosa. So he's lost 3 places, make that 4. He's got to try and find a gap in the traffic. Now, was he pushed or did he fall? That looked like there might have been a bit of help there. What do you think?
I think so. But he was very late into turning in. He was kind of opening the door and inviting somebody to dive up the inside, which is what Hassi did. But then I think the gap then triangulated and there was contact made.
And by the look of it, he can't get the car started to rejoin, so lots of time being lost. Well, his co-driver had a spin or 2 yesterday, didn't he? Pierluigi Alessandri, but Malagamua, thankfully, is away again. So Henri Hassid has gained a place. Maybe with contact, we'll wait to find out. There behind him is Luca Piri. So that's going to bring them now up to 8th and 9th places. Into Rivazza drops Henri Hassid. Half a minute before the pit window opens. Leonardo Gorini still hustles on. And there is number 16 of Stefan Rossina with Bert Langin determined to find a way past. It's taken him a long time to get close enough to strike, and he's just about there now.
Yeah, it's interesting because Rossina is really on the tail of Verges at the early part of this stint, really pressing on to try and get into 2nd position. He's dropped off the back of Verges now. Doesn't have the ultimate kind of lap record pace, and Langin with the Audi that seems to be more consistent across the full stint. We saw the Porsche lose a lot of pace at the end of the race yesterday. The KTM are all over the place depending on the conditions of the track, but the Audi is really sort of a strong car throughout the full 50-minute race.
So Bert Langin, it's almost like he knows he's coming to the end of his stint, and now he strikes because he gets a really good run. And has the KTM got a problem? It has. So something has gone wrong mechanically, I fear, for Stefan Rossina, because that car just did not get the drive up the hill, did it?
No, maybe that was why he was dropping pace a little bit. Let's see if we can hear or see what's going on.
Doesn't look like it's tyre or suspension related. The car doesn't look low on any one corner, does it? So you fear it's in the engine somewhere.
Well, the fact that the lights went on and off suggests he's trying to reset some kind of system.
Well, if there's any good news, it is that the pit window is open, so he could come in, try and sort it, and get the driver change done. But of course, he's losing chunks of time, even though this is in the last half of the lap. He's still losing lots of time, lots of places. Pit window is open then. And
Doppelmayr the first to come into the pits to change over and hand over to Ella Earhart,
who rushes out with his seat. Now, it is 94 seconds line to line. That's what we're looking for. Anything under 94, bad. Anything way over 94, not so good. 94.1, perfect.
And that's plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the idea. The idea is it's not rushed, so that all the belts are done up correctly, and obviously the drivers perhaps not as nimble as a professional racing driver in getting in and out of these cars. Remarkable how hard it is to get in and out of a race car with all the safety bars alongside. It's even quite hard to get in and out of a supercar, generally.
Ben speaks from experience here with his garage full of them, is that right?
Yes, absolutely, as you saw last night.
3.3 seconds is the margin that Steeners Langin has over Michael Vergers, both of whom are going to have to get out of cars fairly soon because their stint is coming to an end. There, look, is Gianluca Giorgi with Laura Kreimer going ahead then. So the KTM, I say going ahead, back ahead.
Yes, exactly. That happened a couple of laps ago,
yes.
But there's some black smoke coming out the back of that KTM, so maybe she's not got the kind of performance that she was hoping for. Here's a
this
mistake.
will explain why she lost the place. So into the Villeneuve chicane very quickly, runs out of road, and Gianluca Giorgi will come steaming through to retake the place.
And that's why the black smoke was there, because she was possibly in the wrong gear. So then when you select back the revs you need, it then spits out the unburnt fuel.
Right, we've got Elliot Earhart on track then, having taken over number 18 early in the window, and therefore he's now got to do a qualifying session to claw back a huge amount of time. Henri Hassid, yesterday's winner, is in. Ignore the blue Audi in the background, that's a GT3 car in the pit lane. 17 has come in, so that for its regulation stop is Hubert Trunkenpolz giving way to Klaus Angerhofer. Henri Hassid is on his way back down the pit lane.
But crucially, behind that KTM was the similar coloured Stefan Rossina, who got himself into pit lane, but is obviously a lot longer in the pits than he would want to be as they try and investigate what the problem is with that car and why it lost so much pace.
Indeed, and he may, of course, not even come back into the race, sadly, but we'll keep an eye to that. So the lead gap has been coming down. It was about 4 seconds at one stage, and Michael Vergers has got it down to 2.7. So Aurelius Rustica versus Nicholas Salins into the second stint. I think Nicholas is the quicker of the two, but it'll be interesting to see what pace then Peter Gulinx has in third, taking over from Bert Langevin, because Peter Gulinx only really started racing at the back end of 2020, did the odd Creventic race, but last year his first full season of racing at this level. And Peter Gulinx sharing with Bert Langevin. And then you've got Kevin Wieder taking over from Anders Fjordbach, who wasn't as quick as Fjordbach yesterday, so the Brabham, I fear, might drop down as well. So that increasingly the one to watch, or ones to watch, plural, Henri Hassid, who's got good pace, and of course Elliot Earhart in number 18. Last at the moment, as they're a little bit deep into Rivazza, comes the race leader.
Last, and also a good minute and a half off the leader, so he needs to be taking chunks and chunks of time. And as I said earlier, really could do with a safety car, and that would then allow him to be competitive. As we saw in the first stint of yesterday, he was able to build a gap with his similar competitors that we'll see him racing in this second stint this morning, to about 15 seconds, I think, at the end. Yeah,
sounds about right. Leonardo Guarini in, and they're still working hard on the true racing entry of Stefan Rossina and Serhi Samini, who really struggled yesterday. Serhi Samini, he was much more impressive last year than he was yesterday in the chilly and the damp conditions. So they're trying to get the car back out. If anything, just give him the track time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, lead gap was down again last time. I told you it was 2.7. It's 2.1. It's almost like late stint impetus comes to the odd driver now and again. And Michael Vergers certainly has brought the gap down markedly over the last 2, 3, 4 laps, and he's hunting down Stinus Langevin there. So Michael Vergers pressing on. It's partly his pace being good, but certainly Langevins' lap times have gone up. They're into the mid-44s now. So Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica in the Audi, which they have used to replace the Porsche they drove last year. The car run by High Class Racing. It's also involved in the Brabham entry, but gone is the Porsche, and instead is the Audi. The Porsche was just a difficult car to get on top of, they both felt last season. So as the Audi seemed to be the car to beat, they've gone the Audi route and hunting down here Stinus Langevin, who's up the curb at Rivazza. Less curb taken significantly by Michael Vergers there.
Stinus Langevin seems to be taking a couple of bites at various corners. It's almost as though the fronts have gone out of the window, and he's not got the same smoothness as feel that he had at the start of the stint. Of course, one of the things they will do when he comes to the pits, they won't just change the driver, but the mechanics will jump on the tyre pressure gauges and change the tyre pressures to bring them back into a window if they've overheated at all. But it does feel as though where Vergers was a bit twitchy at the start of the race and taking different bites into different corners, now Langevin does seem to be struggling a little bit, which is kind of turning and then turning again.
Whereas the high-class Audi there looks smoother, doesn't it? I know it's a little bit up on the curb, but that's deliberate. That's Michael using that as the racing line, whereas you're right, Stinus Langevins' car just looks a bit more nervous, and 2.1 seconds is down to 1.7. This is significant gain, lap after lap after lap. This is game on for the lead now. There in third place is Bert Langevin. Now look at Anders Fjordbach, he's fourth. He's only 7.9 seconds off the leaders, despite 3 offs.
Yeah. Gosh, where would he be if he hadn't visited the rival 3 times?
Exactly. Makes you think. So, in his hands, this is a quick car, no question about it. We first saw the Brabham in GT2 at the back end of last year at Paul Ricard.
And it's worth saying that it is effectively a works entry. It is designed and built and backed by David Brabham. It's not some fan who's built a car and wanted to call it Brabham and got the permission to do so. This is very much a family project.
It had Brabham's did have an outing or two in Brit car, but the GT2 concept has certainly taken David's attention, and clearly they want more cars on track. As in comes Stinus Langin, and Michael Vergers will inherit the race lead then, and therefore stays out that little bit longer to try to give his co-driver the best opportunity. He's leaving it late then, isn't he, with only 2 minutes and 5 seconds. He's got to come in next time. Into the pit lane comes Bert Langin, in also comes Anders Fjordbach. In the meantime, Elliot Earhart.
Car 67, drive-through penalty, causing a collision.
Ooh. Henri Hassid is being given a drive-through. The voice you've heard is Peter Daly, the race director. So he communicates to us a drive-through penalty for Henri Hassid. That would be against Malagamur at Tosa, yes?
Yeah, but that's quite a strong penalty for a very light touch, and difficult to see from our low camera angle exactly, where Malagamur's car was in relation to Hassid. Race Control have the circuit security cameras, so they have a different view of things, and obviously have felt as though Hassid caused unnecessary contact there, because that's a big penalty, and that certainly will eliminate his possibility of taking a second victory here in Imola.
Absolutely right. I was about to say, Elliot Earhart's obviously doing the car's personal best laps of 44.2. He's on a Vergers pace, so he's going to gain another spot with the penalty being applied to Henri Hassid. He's in the car now for the duration, and we've had pretty much everybody in now, with the exception of the race leader. And Henri Hassid is about to get the good news that he will have to have that walk of shame down the pit lane. Away there goes then the PK Car Sport entry of now Nicholas Salins. He's got the wiper on.
I saw another of the Audis coming across the start line with the wiper on. Don't see any umbrellas up. There's plenty of fans well wrapped up. It's about 6 degrees, my car was telling me this morning.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right, Michael Vergers is in, and that's going to put Aurelius Rustica into the car. As he comes in, out of the pit lane goes Nicholas Salins there. So a pit stop is about a lap, give or take, isn't it? Also, Peter Gulinks leaves the pits, and behind Kevin Weider in the Brabham that sings out of the pit lane, makes a fantastic noise. Right, down the pit road comes Michael Vergers then to give way to Aurelius Rustica. Spots of rain on the camera lens.
Yeah, so it is, there is something going on down there.
Angelo Negro out in the Luca Piri Audi. Aurelius Rustica languidly saunters around the car. As you say, there's no hurry in all of this.
Oh, Nicholas Salins just missing the apex there of the second part of Villeneuve, just getting a feel for the car, how it is. At least they're jumping into a car that has warm tyres, warm brakes, everything up to temperature, so you don't have that nervousness that you're going to be driving a car that's really on the edge of traction. Everything's good to go.
And of course, the second driver's got a push from the get-go. Elliot Earhart is doing just that then, but he needs a safety car really to bring him back into the mix, because the best part of a lap was lost by his co-driver. That said, he has got very, very good speed, so can press on in these remaining 19 minutes and change that we have. So there is the leading car, number 11. This is the car that wants to be in the lead and had just done so. Michael Vergers there stands aside it with his helmet in his hand. But they need to get that car back on track as close to the 94-second mark as they can. It's away, but remember, it's a very long pit lane here.
A long pit lane, it takes a long time to get up to speed, up to the terminal velocity that the other car on track is already travelling at. Oh, and I tell you what, Nicholas Salins is not happy at all in that car. Most of the apexes have been left unattended for this first lap, and he's really struggling to lean on the car.
Lonely apexes, yes, feeling unloved. So he will come through, and did Aurelius Rustica get out ahead of him? I think he might have done. So there is number 11 then. That is Nicholas Salins in the Audi. This is Aurelius Rustica. So the efforts of Michael Vergers were good. They got him out ahead, even though the pit stop was slightly longer by 1.8 seconds.
Now Rustica's got to have that same journey of experience on his first lap, seeing how the car feels, how much he can push, whilst hopefully Nicholas Salins has got himself a bit more up to speed, or certainly woken up, because, as I say, it was wide in the background from Peter Gulik as well.
But it's quite a gap that Aurelius Rustica has been given. Bearing in mind Nicholas Salins is on his second lap in the car, Aurelius on his first. Now, bear in mind that Michael Vergers was closing anyway, chunk after chunk after chunk, and he did an extra lap. So on pure pace, you could argue it's not surprising that the car is in the lead, but the fact that Nicolas Salen seemed to struggle on his outlap has perhaps magnified that gap even more. Now this is the AM leader, this is Gianluca Giorgi. Makes the climb over the brow, and the Ebby Motors entry looking for a class win. Henry Hassid, by the way, has just done his drive-through penalty, so he is down the order.
At the end of this lap, we'll now get a good picture as to where everybody is in comparison to each other for the second half of this race, well, for the last 15 minutes. And then we can assess the faster and the slower drivers. We know that Giorgi was good in the second half of the race yesterday, obviously has been in the car since the start, up to pace already, and doing 46s, so not as fast as Ella Earhart, who's down in 11th position, and is the fastest man on track at the moment.
I don't think he's going to stay 11th for very long, though, because he's doing his best to wriggle up through the traffic. He ought to also gain a place after that drive-through for Henri Hassid, or no, I think Henri has stayed ahead of him, even allowing for that. There is number 17, Klaus Angerhofer, who falls back behind Elia Earhart, but he'd already lost a lap anyway. Angerhofer with a problem. Sedi Sarmini, by the way, never got into the race. That other KTM that we saw with its problem has stayed in the pit, so we've got 12 still circulating. Now, lead gap significantly down, isn't it? Aurelius Rustica has now been caught by Nicolas Salens, getting a bit more confidence, and the pressure is on the Lithuanian driver, but is he going to be able to repel the challenge? I fear not for 16 minutes, so Nicolas Salens now applies that pressure and thinks about where he might make the move.
Salens 2 seconds faster than Gulick behind on that one lap.
Drive-through penalty, car 15. Pit lane speeding, car 15 drive-through.
Oof. Thank you, Peter Daly. That's Chris Rosenberger getting a drive-through in 8th place for speeding in the pit lane. That's good news for Elliot Earhart, another place to be gained.
Again, maybe only a couple of kilometres over the pit lane speed limit, but a big, hefty penalty to remove him right out of the race. Very close between these two now at Ravazza for the lead of the race.
Very wide goes Rustica then, and that's going to give a golden chance, isn't it, to Nicolas Salens, who'd got a better line out of Ravazza, makes his move. They're going to be absolutely side by side as they come over the timing line. Nicolas Salens will have the inside line for the run towards Tamburello. He's ahead then now as they cross the line. Through he goes. Still spots of rain fall, but they're not significant enough for the cars on good, hot, slick tyres. Those are still working well. New race leader, Nicolas Salens, puts Audi 11 back ahead then of Aurelius Rustica. Peter Gulink's behind them is lapping quicker than Rustica as well. So we could be on here with 14.5 minutes still to go for a PK Car Sport 1-2, and there's a car off, and it's number 17. So Klaus Angerhofer, who was 2 laps down in 12th place anyway, rattles through the gravel. He's back on the racetrack, just ahead of the leaders who dart around him coming out of Tosa.
Yeah, not what you need as the leader of the race to see a car off, bringing gravel back onto the circuit right in front of you. But thankfully, didn't compromise Nicolas Salens too much there. Salens is a relation to David, the cousin, most known on 2 wheels, in fact. Okay. Did the World Superbike and Super Sport Championship for a few years, and only recently got into 4-wheel racing.
Cousin David was a single-seater gun, wasn't he? He got to sort of GP2, as it was at the time, Formula 3000 level, and occasional sports car races in Belgium. So a motorsport family through and through.
Yes, because I think even Dad was involved in motorsport in the 1950s, 60s.
You're right, yes. So there is Peter Gulinks, who is in 3rd spot, hunting down Aurelius Rustica. And the PK Car Sport Audis, a patriotic Belgian team with the car's livery, come then down. That's 81, the 3rd of the cars in the order, the 2nd of the team's cars. That comes through to complete the lap. Nicolas Salens then was ahead of Aurelius Rustica last time, and now by a much, much bigger margin as he crosses the timing line, the gap 2.7 seconds. But what we need to see is Rustica versus Gulinks, and the margin is 5 seconds, but that lap from Gulinks was a 46.4 and a 49 from Aurelius Rustica, and with 13 minutes just under still to go, that's on.
We also have a battle for last between Henri Hassid and Ella Earhart. As they came across the line last time, there was just a 10th and a half between them. So presumably, that was post penalty, and they are still locked together for 9th position, because actually we've got, well, it's not last. We do have Rosenberger back on track, the 2 KTMs behind, but it's unfair to say last. But yeah, good battle for 9th position between 2 very fast cars. Oh, and the Lamborghini's off.
Yes, that's
Puncture.
a puncture tyre, yeah. Right rear, and Pierluigi Alessandri should be the man behind the wheel of it. The screen still says Dylan for Malagamua, but it should be Alessandrini at the wheel, and he's limping it back, staying on the grass to try and not do any damage, but then he stops again, thinking, is this really wise? Now, it still says Malagamua in the car, but it should be Pierluigi Alessandrini.
Yeah, so he's after the chicane on the, well, he's parked outside our pizzeria.
That's right, yes. A man of good taste. So this is what happened. Did it go as he ran over the curb, or it failed in the corner? Big spin anyway. And thankfully avoided everything solid.
Did a great job to keep it out of the barrier. But not an easy place to recover a car. There's no gaps in the wall there. And with 11 minutes remaining, race control might have to really think about how they're going to be able to do this. There's an overtaking under yellow flags there between, I think that was the car, what was Luca Piri, the 88, passing a KTM. So race control will have to work out if there is a way of getting that car off the circuit without going to a safety car period, because we've got the cars strewn across the whole circuit. So if you go full course yellow, that's fine, but you don't have a gap in the traffic to then bring a recovery vehicle onto the track, especially if the recovery vehicle's at the chicane, and he's, what, 100 metres away from that.
Well, if the car needs retrieving, a safety car would do Elliot Earhart a power of good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we were talking about earlier.
He is willing the Audi to appear.
Because he's not a lap down, that was crucial.
Yeah, stayed on the lead lap, but the yellow flags are there. The car has stopped, so race control will be looking at this now, thinking, can we get this out of the way with a full course yellow, or where's the nearest access point, where's my nearest recovery vehicle, how long will it take, can we do it under full course yellow, or are we going to need a safety car period? Yellow flags are there, wiper is on, Aurelius Rustica then in second spot, still being caught by Peter Gulinks. Although not quite as markedly, in fairness, Aurelius Rustica has been able to up his pace. I didn't, I confess, catch a glimpse of the Lamborghini that time as the cars went through, but I fear it's still there. The sun has definitely disappeared for the moment as well, and it's certainly a cold circuit. We're into the last 10 minutes of the race as Nicholas Salins then now continues to build that gap over Aurelius Rustica.
Yes, and that would actually be a real challenge, wouldn't it? If we go behind the safety car, everything would start to cool down, and because these tyres have done 45 minutes worth of racing, they won't have the same amount of rubber on that will then move around to create grip. So a worn tyre takes longer to warm up and get back into operating temperature than a tyre that is already new and has lots and lots of rubber on it. So that could be a bit of a challenge in the last couple of moments of the race. But if we were going to go safety car, I would have thought it would have been already cool.
Yeah, indeed. So Nicholas Salins the leader now by 4.7 seconds over Aurelius Rustica, who is maintaining a gap, isn't he, over Peter Gulinks? It's 3.3 seconds. Gulinks is lapping quicker, yes, but starting to run out of laps in which to make this move. Still that yellow flag is there in sector 3. Of course, if the race officials can keep the race going, they will do. They are not in the business of trying to deprive, if you like, customers from their track time. They want to be racing, not crawling around behind a safety car. So if it can be covered safely under a yellow flag, then the race can continue. And
the fact that he's actually been able to move it a little bit further away from the exit of the chicane means he's probably in less of a dangerous position than had he stopped where the car had stopped from looping out the chicane, because that's a possibility for any other car on circuit, whereas by being a bit further down the hill is a bit less in range.
True enough. Well, there is the Gianluca Giorgi Porsche. A little bit of a tail wag as he comes out of the Variante Alta. He's in 4th place overall, leading his class. And the last lap that he did was actually quicker than Peter Gulinks ahead, and actually quicker than Aurelius Rustica ahead. Luca Piri's car with Angelo Negro at the wheel has been caught by the sister car of Henri Hassid. So they're in different classes, but 8th place overall. And Henri Hassid there, yesterday's winner, heads up the hill, looking very, very determined indeed to try and find a way past before the end. 7.5 minutes on the clock now.
And Ella Earhart's already got past both of these guys and is up the road. So putting in some great laps. He's going to be, he's 4 or 5 seconds faster than Luca Gori in front of him as well. There's a big gap between them, so it could be difficult to do by the end of the race. But Earhart, the recovery drive continues.
Does indeed, and there Henri Hassid's recovery continues. Don't forget he started at the back. Talk about snakes and ladders races. His is another. Start at the back, work up the order, have a drive through, work up through the order. What about the Brabham? Because actually, in fairness to Kevin Wieder, he's going much, much better today. He's keeping the car in 5th place. Leonardo Guarini is behind him and closing, but has got to make up nearly a minute as Henri Hassid goes through into Rivazza, picks up a place, goes 8th, and he's not done yet, but I'm not sure there's anybody immediately up the road that he can catch before the end.
At least it's entertaining, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely, absolutely. The nice thing is that there are different people, new people coming in this year. The more the grid grows, the more people take notice of this championship. Hopefully, the more cars we will get. I mean, last year, its first season was always going to be a little bit of a learning experience, but it was a good quality lineup. We had the likes of Hans-Joachim Stuck, for example, in the AM class. Now that he's of a given age, he's considered an AM. And having Stucky on the grid was great because he's such a good character. But lots of new drivers coming in this year. And it's interesting, the likes of Elliot Earhart from Carrera Cup Deutschland or the German GT Championship, having a look across at a paddock that he's not normally in and thinking, I like the look of that. And the word will spread, won't it?
Especially being given the opportunity to race in a place like Monza as well, Imola, because these drivers can pick and choose where they go racing, and you know, all right, he has the opportunity to drive mostly in Germany and on those kind of tracks, but the opportunity to come to Imola and race a GT2 car around Imola is too tempting, I guess. Perhaps a little bit different if you're going to Paul Ricard. I don't know if it's quite as aspirational.
Well, the next round for GT2 as Aurelius Rustiger is off the road, and he's lost 2nd place as well, look there, because past him has gone Peter Gulinks. Peter Gulinks in 81 goes 2nd. Aurelius Rustiger off the road falls to 3rd. I was about to say the next round is at the Red Bull Ring, but not as part of an SRO event. It hooks up with the ADAC GT Masters package. So in other words, it's taking this platform to a completely different audience, completely different paddock market, saying, look at us. What happened to Rustiger? This. He was trying to get through the traffic, a little bit too quick through the Villeneuve chicane, just ran out of road.
Just a littlest of twitches, but just enough to put you offline. And that's the great thing about this circuit. If you do make a small error like that, so many tracks that you could just keep your foot in, drive around on a bit of tarmac that's not the real racetrack and carry on, and not really get punished for it. But you get being punished for that tiniest of errors.
Red flag is being shown.
Oh.
So the race has been stopped, and there's a car off the road at the Tamburello corner.
Well, red flag. The race will not restart.
So red flag, no restart, and there's a car off the road. So the race is being stopped. Real shame that, because it was building up nicely with lots of little battles. Now, they had not been across the timing line, I don't think, since Peter Gulinks took 2nd place. So that means Aurelius Rustiger will keep 2nd. So, whew.
Gulinks got into the pits already. I suppose that's following Red Bull, the red flag protocol.
Yeah, but the result is being shown as it was at the end of the 24th lap. So we'll confirm all of this, but it looks like Aurelius Rustiger, because they haven't been over the timing line, has been able to hang on to that 2nd place. Well, great shame that the race has had to be stopped. We'll make sure the driver's okay, and then be able to confirm more about who and why and where. But the GT2 2nd race, as Ben had said, entertaining, always things to talk about, good little battles, and partly because of the nature of the circuit and the cars, but also relative experience of drivers, people going up and down the order, and a battle one lap changes the next. So, yeah, I'm all in favour of GT2. I think the cars look great. It's just a shame that, as yet, people aren't totally committing in great numbers, but I think they will as they start to learn more about the concept, because there's nothing wrong with it. Good venues, good cars.
Yep.
So, red flag being shown, race stopped, and the field not stopping on the grid.
I think there's a bit of confusion as to what to do on the red flag, because we've seen a couple of cars go into pit lane, but majority seem to be passing through the start-finish line.
So there is, in replay the incident. It could be Kevin Wheeler, couldn't it? Yes, can't see the car, so it is the Brabham. Looking at the overalls, Kevin Wheeler. But the good news is that he's out of the car, so Kevin Wheeler is okay. Race stopped, and there is Leonardo Gorini. Sorry, no, it's not. It's Gianluca Giorgi, the other Porsche driver, forgive me, who takes a class win, and he's the winning AM. Race won't be resumed, as you'd heard. We've got another driver under investigation for overtaking under a yellow flag, and it's the winner, Nicholas Salens.
See, now, was that the car that we saw overtaking a KTM at the top of the hill when we had the Lamborghini on the left-hand side? We had that shot, and as they went past, we saw two cars overtaking each other.
Could be, could be.
A difficult one, because the pace of some of the KTMs further back is markedly different to the race leader, 4 or 5 seconds per lap. So when you do come across a car like that that's running that much slower, it's very difficult to back off to a point that you don't actually overtake.
Now, interestingly, number 11 has been shown as 4th.
Oh, no.
Now, it could be that a penalty is applied. It looks like, looking at the graphics on the timing screen, that it has got a penalty. And therefore, Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers not only held on to second place because of the red flag, but therefore have had a win because of, I'm putting all this together by looking at the timing screen, a time penalty being applied to number 11. So Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers are your provisional winners from Peter Goulinks and Bert Longchamp. Gianluca Giorgi is 3rd overall and winning the AMs, 4th overall, and 3rd Pro-Am is number 11 Audi of Nicholas Salens and Stinus Longchamp, and then 5th, the car that's caused the stoppage, which is Kevin Wheeler and Anders Fjordbach. 6th overall, 2nd of the AMs is Leonardo Gorini, and 7th overall, 3rd of the AMs, Elia Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr. So it would have been a drive-through penalty for number 11 for overtaking under a yellow flag, but obviously that can't be done because the race has been stopped, so it's transposed into a 30-second time penalty, and hence the car finishes in 4th place. There you go, there's drama even after the race.
But great work from the race control to get that done before we had the podiums.
Absolutely right. So, here is your ultimate result. Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers take a first win in GT2 from Peter Goulinks and Bert Longchamp. Gianluca Giorgi 3rd to win his class, ahead of the now penalised Nicholas Salens and Stinus Longchamp. Kevin Wheeler and Anders Fjordbach 5th, but causing the stoppage. 6th, Leonardo Gorini ahead of Elia Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr. Henri Hassid, after his drive-through, is 8th from Angelo Negro and Luca Piri. 10th, Chris Rosenberger and Laura Kreimer. That was another car that got a drive-through. 11th, Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz. And out of the race, Delantha Malagamua and Pierluigi Alessandrini.
The only other problem that race control now have is that half the field ignored the red flag procedure and did an extra lap. So they're going to have to investigate that as well. And they definitely can't sort that out before the podium.
No, that's true.
There is quite a few cars didn't come into pit lane on the red flag conditions, and they did an extra lap. Here's the highlights.
Of which there were many, and it all started with Anders Fjordbach being given a bit of a squeeze by Bert Longchamp. He headed towards the dirt and was able to survive the drama, as into the lead went Stinus Longchamp, and Aurelius Rustica's car with Michael Vergers at the wheel, and it went through on the inside to get ahead of Stefan Rossina for 2nd place. Anders Fjordbach was off the road at the end of the opening lap though, slithering off the circuit, getting himself back towards the tarmac, losing places and having to do all the hard work all over again. It wasn't long before Fjordbach was fighting his way back through the field and picking off places as he did so. Off the road at Tamburello, however, went the Brabham, as Delantha Malagamua was busy trying to keep Henri Hassid at bay as the cars battle their way down towards Tosa. Henri Hassid up to the back of the grid, the race one winner, but then made contact with Malagamua, turned him around, and for that he copped a drive-through penalty. Off the road also ran number 15, Laura Kreimer, wide out of the Villeneuve chicane as the pit stop window opened. Michael Vergers in number 5 Audi stayed out for as long as possible, and that was crucial because he was able to put the car into the lead for Aurelius Rustica, and although they dropped back briefly to third place with penalties and with countbacks after a red flag, the car would win. It lost the lead on the road to number 11 of Nicola Salins that went through. A punctured tyre for Pierluigi Alessandrini put them off the road, and the car retired from the race, unable to get back to the pit lane. Rustica ran wide, that dropped him back behind Peter Gulinks, but it wasn't long before the red flag flew. The race stopped. That put number 5 Audi back ahead, and it also meant that on the penalty to number 11 winning Audi, so it becomes a winning car, and that's the reason for the red flag. That's what's left of the Brabham. A sizable accident through Tamburello, and the best news of all is that Kevin Wheeler is okay, but one crumpled car, as you can see. So Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers take their first victory in GT2. They're with Gemma.
They've bought the band out for you and everything. Look at that. Aurelius, as you got out the car, did you know that you'd won that?
No, it was a surprise. I even don't know what position. I asked many times on the red flag, what position am I? They say, we don't know. And then come here, second. No, first, yeah!
Congratulations, Michael. You said to me earlier, Lady Luck was on your side, but a great drive.
I mean, we struggled. I struggled a lot in the beginning with the cold tires, like everybody else did. And then I just pushed really hard to catch the long-on car in front. And then Aurelius jumped in. We did an extra lap, and they pitted 1 lap earlier, so I think we gained that like 5 seconds we lost with the penalty. And then Aurelius drove amazingly well. And then, yeah, we had the red flag. Right at that moment, Aurelius was overtaken, so that kind of didn't count. But then I think the 11 car got a 30-second penalty for going too fast through the yellow flags. Yeah. So we'll take it. You know, it's a long season, and to start off like this is it's a dream come true, really.
Congratulations.
Thank
you haven't quite believed it yet. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, they came so close to good results last year. They also had some bad luck with the car retiring at Spa and catching fire as it was sitting on the grass, and then it was a failure that pitched it into the Paul Ricard barriers at the end of the season. So a new car, new start, and a first win. And okay, you might argue it was rather fortuitous, that, with penalties and red flags, but a win is a win, and they'll take that. So good job done by Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica. You can tell that Michael started working in race control, can't you? Because he knew the regulations there. He was fully aware of what was going on in terms of the penalty applied to his rivals and exactly the reasons why.
We've got a full summary, didn't we?
Absolutely.
What
yes.
happened in the race.
Almost quoted the regulation number. So Aurelius Rustica still trying to work out if that's right or not. Do I need to go and pinch myself? But a good win. Gianluca Giorgi, third overall, taking the AM honours.
I mean, it's a great day when you manage to lose the lead, run off the circuit, and still win. I mean, that's
absolutely, absolutely.
Put a lottery ticket in now.
Yes, precisely. Whatever business Aurelius Rustica owns, I'm going to go and buy shares in it, because clearly he's got the winning touch. 3 seconds, the margin, but it's a slightly false margin, because as we know, you went off the road and lost a place. But yeah, drama all the way. Drive-through penalty for the on-the-road winners. You've got to feel a bit sorry, really, for Stinus Longin and Nicolas Salins, because it wasn't an overtake for position, it was a back marker. Yeah. I know an overtake is an overtake, but it wasn't that they gained necessarily out of it. It was just, I suppose, partly the closing speeds of some of the quick cars against the slower KTMs, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah, I mean, imagine having to back off throughout that window to a point where you don't overtake. You could be losing bundles of time, and it could have meant that the lead changed post that yellow flag zone.
So here are third and second, somewhat bemused and frustrated to say the least. Stinus Longin with a grumpy face and a shake of his head, and Nicolas Salins and a shrug of the shoulders. Then Bert Longin and Peter Gulinks. Back for the top step, Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers. And although there are congratulations from the penalised pair, this is the Pro-Am podium, I should point out. Stinus Longin's face says it all. Well done, Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica. Aurelius Rustica, Michael Vergers winners together for the first time in the GT2 European Series, the Fanatec GT2 European Series, and this the Pro-Am podium. So now the trophies presented to Nicolas Salins and Stinus Langin, who are still busy explaining their race. Stinus Langin jumps off the podium, possibly because he's required in race control, but he's gone. Now there's an element of confusion as to who gets what. But Stinus Langin has legged it. Nicolas Salins disappears as well. And Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica claim the top step of the podium. I think there's still a touch of confusion. However, they are the winners according to the results. And next stop for the Fanatec GT2 European Series will be the Red Bull Ring towards the end of May. So now the podium is made ready for a slightly easier category in terms of the AMs, because there are no penalties floating around there. So it was Gianluca Giorgi who was a pretty convincing winner from the Porsche of Leonardo Gorini, and then Elliot Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr taking third place in the AM category, thanks to good pace from Elliot Earhart. And the Audi drivers will make their way onto the podium very shortly, with the GT2 teams, as I say, they're double headers at each event, done for Imola. Next stop, Red Bull Ring next month. So we should have the drivers ready to go. You can see it's not quite as sunny as it was an hour or so ago when you joined us for the start of the race, but out come Elliot Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr in the LP Racing Audi. Then for second place, it will be Leonardo Gorini, the Porsche pilot, also for LP Racing. And then the top step of the podium, Porsche pilot, but from AB Motors, it is Gianluca Giorgi, who makes his way, all smiles, onto the top step. Winner of the AM category. Make a class win. Out come the trophies. There, Michael Doppelmayr and now Elliot Earhart receive their awards for third place. Michael Doppelmayr will get quicker and quicker in that car, for sure. There is Leonardo Gorini, who celebrates second, and in the centre in the white overalls, it is Gianluca Giorgi, who encourages his colleagues onto the top step with him for the photograph. And we'll see whether it's the same story or a markedly different one at Red Bull Ring next time out, that you'll be able to follow the action of on the GT World YouTube channel. But as the drivers make their way from the podium, congratulations in the AM class to Gianluca Giorgi, and our outright winners Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers, winners of race 2 of the Fanatec GT2 European Series. For now, from Ben Constanduros and David Addison, goodbye.